Hey guys, how's it going? TechSpecs here. Hope you're all doing well. Recently, I got the Logitech Combo Touch keyboard case for my iPad Air, and in this video I'm going to be going through my thoughts about it. I'm going to be covering the design, the keyboard, the trackpad, as well as my overall experience with iPadOS. So without further ado, let's begin. Okay, so as always, let's start with the design. The first thing that many people say about the Logitech Combo Touch when they first see it is that it's pretty thick. And in all honesty, they aren't that wrong. Not only this, but having a thick case as well as a keyboard and trackpad attached to your iPad means that when closed it is quite heavy, but in my opinion it's not that hard to carry around. The rubber material around the sides does protect all the corners of your iPad, so you don't really have to worry about dropping it. After all, that's what a case is supposed to do. The whole case has a nice grey colour scheme to it, which I like, and it looks pretty clean with the space grey iPad. And on the front and the back there is this textured material which is nice for the touch. I think it's made of this kind of almost nylon, maybe fabric kind of material, and it's wipeable and it's also water resistant, so it won't damage if you spill anything on it. Overall, I think the aesthetic to the Logitech Combo Touch is pretty nice. To stand the iPad upright, there is a Microsoft Surface style kickstand on the back of the case, and in my opinion it's great. It offers many different viewing angles, all the way from a near vertical 90 degrees to a 160 degrees, which is almost flat and is perfect for me and probably the average person too. In terms of where you could probably stand it, you could stand the iPad anywhere and it would be fine, but I think that it works best on a hard flat surface like a desk or a table compared to your lap. That's not to say though that it does work fine on your lap. There is some rocking if you don't sit still or anything, but for someone like me with long legs and pretty wide legs, I can balance it fine on my lap and there's not much rocking or anything. On the side of the case there is also a slot for the Apple Pencil to go in, and I find this is really useful to have, as it means that the Apple Pencil goes everywhere where my iPad would go, and it means that I don't have to try and remember to bring it separately and possibly get it lost. They also say that it should fit the Logitech crayon or any other stylus that you might have for your iPad. I probably think that it could fit maybe a pen or a pencil if you want to carry that around with you. Not that you would write on your iPad with a normal pen or pencil, but still. And the grip on it is pretty secure. I've shaken my iPad about and it has yet to fall out, so the pencil or whatever stylus you're using is not going to go anywhere. Next, let's go on to the main attraction, which is the keyboard and the trackpad. This portion connects magnetically using the iPad Smart Connector on the side, and it means that there are no batteries and there's no Bluetooth connection involved, and it works by just taking power directly from the iPad. This also means that the keyboard and trackpad can remain pretty thin, and that's a good thing because the case itself is already pretty thick as it is. The magnetic connection to the iPad is pretty secure as well. It does take a bit of force to remove it, but it is possible, and since of course it's removable, it means that you can use your iPad just as an iPad and then reattach the keyboard when you need to use it, which is pretty nice because it means that you have an iPad and a kind of laptop. The keyboard itself is as wide as the iPad is, and after using it for a while, I'd say it's alright to type on. It's definitely thinner than the Magic Keyboard that I'm used to typing on, as there's not as much travel, which travel means that how far the keys actually go in when you press them. And I'd say that they're roughly the same size, and I don't really think that there's much of a problem with the keyboard. It's just pretty thin. One thing I will say is that some of the keys on the right side, like the apostrophe key, the squared brackets key, the wavy brackets, or the slash keys, they are quite squished in compared to the other keys because there kind of isn't much room on the keyboard to fit all full-size keys. But I don't really think that's much of a problem because I never really use other keys often, and I don't think many other people do. So yeah, that's kind of one thing about the keyboard. However, one thing that Logitech has done much better than Apple when it comes to making a keyboard case for their iPad is that they have an additional function row along the top. Going across from the left, you have a home button key, which basically does what the home button does and takes you to the home screen. When you press it, you can double tap it to show all the apps that are open, and you can hold it for Siri, which is pretty cool. Then you have brightness down and up keys, which are for the iPad's display, and then there's also an on-screen keyboard toggle, which basically shows you the keyboard on the screen of the iPad, which I don't know why that's there, but I guess maybe there are some keys that you can't have on the physical keyboard that you can have on the iPad keyboard. So yeah, then there's also a spotlight search key which basically toggles spotlight search from anywhere on the iPad. Then the next two are keyboard brightness toggles, because in fact the keyboard is backlit, which I think is really cool. Although it does drain the battery of your iPad a bit when you use it, it means that when it's dark you can still see all the keys fine, and it makes the experience much better than having to squint to read which keys you're tapping. When you first put the keyboard on the iPad, it automatically downloads the Logitech Controls app, which although it doesn't have many controls in it, it means that you can customize the fade and how long the backlight stays on the keyboard when you have stopped typing. And yeah, having a backlit keyboard is really useful. Continuing on from where we left off with the function row, there are also some media playback buttons too, which are your basic play, pause, skip and rewind. There are also volume buttons there as well, so for volume up, volume down, as well as a mute one which just takes it to 0 straight away. And finally there's also a lock key which, as it suggests, it locks your iPad, so you don't have to press the power button every single time. Now let's move on to the trackpad. Cursor and mouse support isn't really a new thing because it's been around since the beginning of iOS 13. And of course with iOS 13.4, when the new iPad Pro came out, it got refined and got even better, so now the experience is really smooth and really fluid. The trackpad itself isn't that small, and it's also not too big. It's definitely not MacBook size, but it is comfortable to use. There's definitely enough room for all of my fingers to do the gestures, and all of these can be done pretty easily. One thing that I would say is that you cannot click everywhere on the trackpad, you can only click on the bottom 3/4, I would say. This is because the trackpad uses a diving board mechanism. This means that it only clicks on the bottom half of it. Apart from that, the trackpad is pretty nice to use. One thing that is kind of annoying is that some of the apps like Microsoft Office or YouTube or some websites, they aren't optimized for the iPad mouse support yet, but gradually more and more of them are adding support, and I think as more apps support the way that the cursor works in iPadOS, then I think the experience will just become better and better. Talking about iPadOS, let's talk about how it held up when I was using it. In the last few days, I've literally only been using my iPad as my main device for doing any work on, for school or for doing YouTube on, and I think you can do most of the things that you would do on a normal computer. You can easily do like 9 out of 10 things on an iPad. It kind of is surprising, to be honest, because most people, when you think iPad is a main computer, you probably think, ew, there's no apps, a mouse on an iPad. But in all honesty, there's not really any problem with it. It just works, it's amazing. Of course, I'm not saying that the iPad is better than a traditional computer or a traditional desktop, because there are just some things that you cannot do on an iPad that you can do on a computer. But if you only need to do things like writing Word documents, or searching the internet for things, or the occasional editing of photos or anything here and there, the iPad is as good as any other device at doing it. Especially with this keyboard and trackpad case, it changes the way that you use your iPad. Would I switch to using only my iPad as my main computer for everything? Probably not, because I have a desktop which can do computer things and an iPad which can do iPad things. But at the end of the day, if I had to, I probably could work with an iPad. And that brings me to the price. The whole case and keyboard and trackpad costs a total of £119, which is definitely cheaper than Apple's Magic Keyboard for the iPad Pro, which is overpriced to say the least. And although the iPad may seem like it's kind of limited right now in terms of app support and desktop things, I think it's only going to get better with time as iPadOS is updated year after year. So in conclusion, I think that the Logitech Combo Touch keyboard and trackpad case for the iPad is one of the best accessories out there for it, as it means that you basically get a really good tablet that it also works as a laptop does. And I think that's a pretty good combo, if you ask me. And that's about it for this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you're new here, be sure to subscribe, as it really supports the channel. This is TechSpecs here, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.